Good evening. Welcome into the Irish NFL show, our Tuesday recap, Monday recap of Sunday's week 10. I'm not sure what day it is anymore. That's what happens when you go away with Noel down for a weekend in Germany to watch your beloved Giants find another way to lose a game. We're going to get into it, I suppose, the weekend over the course of the next hour. This show is brought to you in partnership with QuimBet. And Kieran, I'll kick off with yourself before we come to Noel. But our plan was to kick off with the NFC North, and that was the Detroit Lions and the fantastic comeback on Sunday Night Football against the Texans. But we'll pivot slightly to Chicago, and I'll try to get the biased piece first before we go to Noel, because Shane Waldron was let go today. He was relieved of his duty, shall we say, as offensive coordinator. And having spent the day with Noel on Sunday, and we got an opportunity to watch a bit of the Bears game, it was clear and evident that Bears fans are clearly frustrated. Me and Noel talked yesterday on the way back around the social aspect in terms of the enormity of everyone discussing Caleb Williams, the head coach, whether he's under pressure. He came out with a statement yesterday saying we're going to see changes effective immediately, essentially, and it took them a day to finally come to the decision to move on from Waldron. Bearing in mind where the Bears were 3 weeks ago when they beat the Jags at Tottenham, and it looked like they were going in the right direction, and we spoke about the Commanders game, and then the following week in terms of the games they really needed to win, and looked like everything was going in the right direction. Are you surprised how I wouldn't call it free fall, but things have quickly evolved over the course of the last 3 weeks?
Well, that's the nature of the NFL. Things happen quickly. I mean, we've seen just earlier on today, and we'll get into that later with the Giants, with the Joe Schoen press conference. Things can escalate really quick, and I know Noel's going to go into it in a lot more, so I won't steal much of his thunder. But I am very surprised. You know, I thought that Caleb was going and trending in the right direction, and that things were progressing. The offense was starting to click a little bit, especially after the London games. Or the London game, and people have disappeared off the map. I mean, Cole Kmet, I think he might have had 16 yards yesterday. I'm not sure the full amount, but the whole offense, the whole weaponry of the Bears has just disappeared. It's gone pear-shaped really fast. Now, I will give credit to the Bears, to the Patriots for doing the homework. A lot of what the Patriots did is what teams did in college last year. The Bears got a shaky O-line. They know how to get to Caleb. They know how to, you just rattle them. You beat up that O-line. You make them scramble. You make them go left, right real quick and get out of the pocket. And that's what happened. They made him uncomfortable. They sacked him 9 times. And again, I'm not going to go into too many stats because I know, Noel's going to tee them all up. But it was, I'll credit the Pats for doing the homework and doing exactly what they needed to do. And that defense showed up big time, and it made the Bears uncomfortable the whole game. But 3 points out of an offense that puts players out in the field like that, and a performance like that is just, I mean, it's already led to Waldron's job. I just saw a stat earlier that the Bears are 14-29 with Eberflus in the last 2.5 seasons. We all know he's going to be gone at the end of the year. Will he be gone before that? Because that NFC North slate is coming thick and fast. I'm very surprised. You need an O-line to protect a rookie quarterback. We've seen that with plenty of teams in the league. The Bears O-line is in a lot of trouble right now, and that's leading to bad times for Caleb. So, yeah, not the way I saw it happening, and I'm going to hand it over to Noel because I know he's going to relive Sunday.
I just want to jump in.
Keep talking, Kieran. I'm good.
I know we spoke time and time again about the nature of how quickly the Bears make changes, and you felt even last season potentially they would move on from Eberflus. Obviously, they stuck with him, but rightly so. On our group today, we're talking about immediate changes. Quarterback now has to work with a new offensive coordinator. The likelihood of working with a new head coach next year, and Bears doing dysfunctional things. It would argue one of the better talents to come out of the draft for quite some time. This has unfolded quickly over the course of the last few weeks. But I'll hand it over because you said this was a get-right game, and look, we all felt it was a get-right game for the Bears, and it didn't play out that way. Rightly so, what Kieran's saying. Drake May and the Patriots are evolving nicely. You can see they're doing good things, but this was a game the Bears had to have. Bearing in mind who they've got this weekend, one of the biggest games of the season in the NFC North against the Packers.
Yeah, look, this I don't even know how to start with this. This has been crazy with the Bears, and they always find a ways to mess it up. I mean, this season, we should have known better. We came into the season and we thought, they have the receivers, they have the running back, they've the quarterback. We felt like all the pieces were coming into place, and we are 9 games in, and the offensive coordinator is gone. The head coach by rights should be gone, but I mean that's only Kieran mentioned it. That's hanging by a thread. He's gone end of the season no matter what anyway, and it's just a shambles. I mean, look, 3 points at home to the New England Patriots. I mean, I don't care if you're playing the Chiefs. 3 points at home is not good enough. Even if you lose the game, you don't come away with 3 points. I mean, you're playing one of the worst defenses in the league, and that's what's happening. I mean, I don't think any of us saw it ending like this. I think we all probably thought, or a lot of people thought, they might scrape past the Patriots, and then you'd hit that next run of games, which you mentioned, which could do damage to them. But for it to happen like that, there was only one outcome for the offensive coordinator. There seems to be a lot of discontent between players now. I mean, Kieran mentioned Cole Kmet. There was a spell there where he went 2 games and had 1 target. This is your $50 million tight end who was supposed to be kind of a security blanket for a young quarterback who might be having issues. That didn't happen. You know, they failed to get DJ Moore going at times. They failed to get Keenan Allen involved at times. Rome Odunze, obviously a highly touted young prospect coming out in the number 9 in the draft. They haven't got him going. It's just so hit and miss. And it falls at the feet of Eberflus. But I think Waldron is a bit of a sacrificial lamb at the moment. That desperate Hail Mary from a coaching staff that are trying to make it look like they're doing something. But at the end of the day, you know, Thomas Brown will come in. He has experience as an offensive coordinator. But really, what are you expecting him to do within, less than a week to a Packers game? There's answers, or there's questions for a lot of people throughout this, this franchise from the bottom to the top, right up to Ryan Poles, who, by and large, I was very, very complimentary to what he's done. I like a lot of what he's done, but unfortunately, similar to his predecessor, Ryan Pace, for me, he's got the biggest decision wrong when he had to make it. Ryan Pace should have been drafting Patrick Mahomes. He went for Mitch Trubisky. And for me, Ryan Poles should have been sacking Matt Eberflus when you had the number 1 draft quarterback coming in to get a new offensive coordinator on the same timeline as your new young quarterback. But now they're following the trend of previous regimes. Draft a quarterback in the first round, fire his coach at the end of the season, bring in a new coach, draft a quarterback in the first round, fire his coach after his 4th season. And they've done it again. And, that's a lot for a rookie quarterback to have to deal with. He's learning the scheme. He's getting used to coaches and the NFL. And suddenly it's all whipped away after season 1 and you're back into it again in season 2. So this is mismanagement from the top all the way down. And I'm including the players in that. Caleb Williams hasn't helped himself at times on the field as well. He's missing throws. He's not hitting certain throws. But I genuinely, without absolving him fully, I do wonder how much this process and this coaching staff has hurt him, because he doesn't look like the exciting Caleb Williams from college football. He doesn't look like he wants to get out of the pocket and move as much. And I wonder, is that a coaching thing, telling him to stay in there and maybe forcing him to play in a way that he's not comfortable with? And when the rest of the team is failing and the O-line is failing, rookie quarterback hasn't got a hope in that. And for me, there's blame to go around everywhere with this one.
Kieran, I'm going to throw one out here from last year, right? And I know it's a completely different situation and Buffalo of Josh Allen. But Josh Allen was struggling last year. Bills made a decision to move on from their offensive coordinator. I think his last game was against the Broncos when they lost that game in the field goal at the end. And then all of a sudden there was a huge upward turn in the season and things quickly got together. I know it's a very different team, different situations. But isn't against the realms a possibility that Wilson comes in as offensive coordinator? And I'm not saying he lighted up against the Packers, but there's a freshness about it, a different scheme. I know it's a very quick turnaround. I get all that. But we see a much better performance next Sunday, because we have seen it. You talked about the NFL time and time again. It's a week-to-week season, and there's no reason why the Bears can't come out and play well next weekend on offense. And I mean, play well from an offense standpoint. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they put up 30 points next week. I mean, you get that new coordinator, new coach bounce. I mean, we saw it in New Orleans last week. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because his team is loaded with talent, and Caleb is just, I have expressed my kind of doubts at the start of the season, but he's shown me a lot. But again, it comes down to the O-line. I mean, if you don't have big horses that can keep him or give him at least 2 seconds to throw the ball or give him some sort of mobility back there, then that's going to be a tough thing. Now, I believe in Caleb. I think he's going to work out. But again, in the NFL, it's all about coaching. Find the right coach. We'll talk about Jones later on, but you need coaches who are going to be able to get through to players and make them comfortable, give them that kind of confidence, give them the motivation to play well. So I don't think anyone would be surprised with a bounce back game against Green Bay next week. But a lot of things are in flux in Chi-Town right now. That's for sure.
Kieran, I'll stick with you. And if ever there's a game that signified how good and how much potential the Lions team has, and could seriously be the team now that goes and wins this NFC. I know people say the 49ers had a bounce back game, bigger games ahead this week for 49ers. And if they can get McCaffrey back at the level that they could potentially be there again. But for the team to be 23-7 down against arguably one of the better AFC teams at half times, they go scoreless in the second half. Texans, the Lions come out on the right side of it, equalise late on with a field goal, find a way to get a final drive to win the game. Stan Campbell is just like, if ever, it's the one team. I know Andy Reid does everything for the Chiefs, but right now he just seems like that one coach that every player on the team will go above and beyond for. To be down 23-7 against a serious AFC contender, you probably thought at halftime, right, this one's gone. It's one of those games you reflect on it and say, the Texans are a good side and we didn't come out the right. So if they come back and win this one, this is a huge victory.
Huge victory. And it kind of went along the lines of what we discussed last week. The Sunday night game, you got the rah-rah, you got all the pyrotechnics and all the stuff that goes through with it. And, Texans did come out of the gate. They put up a good performance in the first half. And Goff, 5 interceptions. That's very few teams, I think, in the history of the NFL have come back from a quarterback throwing 5 interceptions. But again, when you got players like Sonic and Knuckles out there just grounding the yards out, and that Texans, that defense, the longer the game went on, they just got more and more gassed. But it's Campbell. This is a team that, if ever there's a team in the league that takes on the personality of the head coach, is this team. Relentless, tough, hard-nosed, don't give up, just scrappy. And that's what they did. They had to come back. They had to show what they got. Goff has been, we've seen him basically since October, he's been faultless. He's just been passer ratings through the roof. He's barely thrown any interceptions. He's thrown touchdowns for fun. And this was real adversity. This was a team that came to play, that, they got the memo, as the phrase goes. They knew exactly what they had to do to get past this team, and they did a great job of doing that. But when the chips, were down, and when the Lions needed a performance, they got it from everybody. Everybody just chipped in. Gibbs at 71 yards, Montgomery at 32, Laporta, when you got somebody like Laporta throwing the yards in there, and a weapon, a wide receiver one like Amon-Ra St. Brown. But it's just testament to what this team is. We love watching them. They're a great entertaining team. And as opposed to last year, when they had that kind of collapse against the Niners, do they have now the kind of the muscle memory and the kind of experience to go with that goes with all that? When you get so close, you learn the little things that kind of eliminates those issues. So they've showed us now that they've got the ability to come back from a pretty decent deficit. And then they scored 16 straight points. That's the other thing. Their defense kicked in when they really needed it. And I think the Texans really missed Will Anderson Jr. Stingley did a good job, but losing a player like Will Anderson on defense is always going to put you in the hole. But I like what Texans did. They showed some grit. Another tough game for C.J. Stroud with no Nico Collins out there. We've talked about it. He's not the same player. But when it came down to it, the Lions did what they had to do to get the win, and that's looking good for them down the stretch.
No, this is another testament for Goff, bearing in mind he's played so well since he's gone in there. Obviously, a difficult start as they were a poor side at the time. They built it all up. But we haven't seen many games where the Lions were down with double-digit scores and had to come back, and certainly come back off a 23-7 deficit at halftime to use turnaround. So as much as Dan Campbell's getting all the credit, bearing in mind it wasn't Goff's one of Goff's better games, he's still, testament to him that he could bring the team back and do essentially what Dan Campbell asks and find a way to put them in position to win the game. It's huge. It's a massive.
No, it is. It is, and it's one of those wins that you look at a halftime, you think the game's over, things are just not going the way they want, and then they fight back and they show the character that they have in that team. That comes from that head coach that all of these players seem to have. We mentioned some of the players they have there, whether it's running back or wide receiver, tight end. They have a lot of talent in there, and this win shows you that they're not only football talented, but they're mentally talented. They don't let things like that get on top of them and unfold. They keep fighting until the end. And this time they went there and they got a win. I mean, the Texans made it difficult for themselves at one point when I think it's your right tackle is pulling the ball out of your quarterback's hands for a fumble. I don't know what's going on there. But look, this Lions team, they really do. They have so much talent that they can overcome this kind of a game, and they will be a tough team to stop. And we do compare it to the Chiefs in a different way. You know, they win games that you wonder how they do it. And that's the sign of champions. And that's why I think this Lions team is going to a Super Bowl, because I really see very few teams out there that could really put it up to this offense. Even when they have a bad first half, they keep going. And yeah, look, you can't fail but just be impressed with how the Lions deal with things, even in adversity like that.
Here on Arrowhead on Sunday, Chiefs frustrated a lot of people because it looked like the Broncos had that game, and yet the Chiefs find a way yet again to come out victorious. Bearing in mind the game on Sunday against the Bills, I'm kind of glad they won. I'm kind of glad they were unbeaten. It kind of marks this game on Sunday as arguably one of the biggest games of the season, because the Bills are rolling right now at 8-2, and you've got a game now with the Chiefs coming in. It's going to be hyped up so much come Sunday evening. CBS managed to keep it in that nice late afternoon slot for you, 9:25 for us. Right now, there has been some huge games this season. There's huge coming. This one kind of signifies a big opportunity for the Bills, because if the Bills were to win and they're only one game back, they'd be looking at it now as a possibility to get that one seed. They'd have to win against them, and then it only takes one more slip up and if they can run the table. I know I'm kind of pushing too far ahead in terms of where we are. We haven't even hit December when it really gets into the business end of the season. But if the Chiefs were to win on Sunday, essentially that wraps up the one seed, I would have thought.
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be a good night for the conference. I mean, we've had some big games this season. The Vikings, Lions. You know, the Chiefs had a big one early in the season against the Bengals and the Ravens. And you know, I was doing social media on Sunday, and it was about 11 minutes left, and I put out that the Chiefs have already won this game. You know it, and I know it. And that was about a half hour before the finish of the game, and it had that inevitability. Despite and it went pretty much the way that I called it. You know, I knew the Broncos would play hard, and that defense would play hard, and that Knicks would scramble a lot, and that's pretty much how it went. I mean, the Broncos were excellent. They were really good. They were moving the ball well. Cortland Sutton was making some catches. You know, Knicks was scrambling around, putting the defense on skids. And the Broncos did a really, really great job of keeping them in check. Travis Kelce's wide open as we speak. I don't know what he's doing, but he's got about 10 yards of space around him right now. That's how I still don't understand. Again, I put it out Sunday. How coaches give him that amount of space. He's always open. It's incredible. I've never seen a player be so wide open in every single game and make crucial catches. We've seen it for years, but when you see it in a game that's, you know, in a league game as opposed to the playoffs, you just staggered, because, you know, he's wide open every single time. But you know, it's what the Chiefs do. They hang around. You know, the Broncos did everything that they needed to do. Defense was stout and solid. Kept Mahomes scrambling. He was sacked 4 times, 266 yards and a touchdown. Fairly decent output from him. He found Kelce. That run game again with Kareem Hunt is looking good. But you know, I was a little nervous when the Broncos were letting the clock tick down, because you have that feeling of inevitability. Were they ever even going to get beaten in the end? You know. And then when you look at it in slow motion, what happened? The left tackle just got completely blown up. The center just let the guy right through him, and the rest is history. And I also put out, you know, it seems like they've used up years worth of luck, and it's how many teams. I mean, you want to equate it to Man United in the 90s, where, you know, they're never out of it. It's the 97th minute, and Giggs is popping up for a winner. It's Tom Brady, you know, just down by 10 with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and finding a way to pull it out. You know, it's as close to that Man United team that we remember growing up. That is never out of it, even if the 2 or 3 down. Three down with 90 minutes, they find new ways to win, and it's the most inevitable of outcomes you could ever imagine. And if you're the Broncos, you're sick, because you've played a hell of a game. You've gone into Arrowhead. You've done exactly what you've needed to do on the game plan, and then you come out with a loss.
I was just going to go to the Broncos now, because you know better than anyone, sorry to say, that one game can result in a massive downward turn in your season, and the Broncos are going to play the Falcons this weekend, who are also coming off a loss, and the Broncos will reflect on. In fairness to the Broncos, no matter who's the head coach, they tend to always play the Chiefs close. Even when they were down a couple of years ago by double digits, they found a way to come back and gave the Chiefs problems. They beat them last year at home. And whilst Mahomes has a great record in the AFC West and against the Broncos, they've always put it up to him. So it didn't come as a surprise that how well they played. But Sean Payton, for me, needed this victory. He's done a reasonably good job this season. You know, they're 5-5. They're in the 7th spot in the wild cards right now. A 6-4 record and a 2-game. I suppose it would take a 2-game slide for someone to jump ahead of them in that 7th spot would have been huge. And it's kind of that game you had it was there for you. And I wonder now, bearing in mind that the Falcons, who played quite well on the road, will go in there on Sunday. You just wonder now, will it be an adverse impact, or will it be to be buoyed by the fact that we played and should have beaten arguably the best team in the league.
Yeah, look, that kind of a finish is gut-wrenching for a team that worked so hard. And you mentioned then the Falcons game, and that's the question we talked earlier on about the Lions and how, you know, they don't let their heads drop, and that second half they just keep going. And that's what Sean Payton has to see now in his team with his young quarterback. I mean, you look at this Broncos defense, and again, they hold the Chiefs there, and you know, when you have a defense playing as well as this, you know, generally then you just need your offense to be competent, and you can get some of those wins. As we see, they're 5-5, and that'll be the thing now. Can they get their heads back into the game going into this Falcons game? As you said, the Falcons also lost a game that they may feel they should have won, so it'll be interesting to see the dynamics of both teams. But again, and this game is actually really interesting because this Broncos defense for me is excellent, and it's the Falcons offense. Broncos defense and Falcons offense are both kind of the strongest points of those teams. So it's going to be interesting to see when they kind of come up against each other. But and Bo Nix as well, in fairness, I've been really impressed with how he's developed as the weeks have gone on in the season. He looks like a player who was taken to the NFL a lot quicker than I thought he would. So who knows if this defense comes to play and keeps doing what it's doing, and Bo Nix can make some big plays when needed. I mean, this Broncos team could get a win there. They could get themselves back up. Obviously, the Chiefs are far away and away, but you know, they're not a million miles behind the Chargers, and who knows what way the AFC goes then in terms of wildcard spots. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. But they, as I said, they have a defense that will always keep them in a game, and then it's just whether or not Bo Nix and that offense can maybe do enough to win some of these games to give them a good chance.
Kieran, now interviewed assistant head coach of the Saints, now interim head coach Darren Rizzi during the off season, and it was a very good interview in terms of his career to date and how he's going to progress a lot in his career. And one thing that was evident on Sunday during that game was how much the players were reacting to him on the sideline, the missed field goal. And I'm sure he loved that even more, bearing in mind he's a special teams guy at heart. But the only slight concern I have is, was things so bad on the Dennis Allen that they're just delighted that he's out of the building, or is it really that they're really reacting to this guy? Because we saw last year with Antonio Pierce, he came in off the back of the Josh McDaniel saga, and it looked like it was a smooth sailing piece in terms of everyone loved playing for him. He got the job as head coach, and now we're seeing it quickly evolve into a very different situation. And I'm not going to say that's the case with the Saints, but it is their third win of the season. They've got the Browns coming to town on Sunday, and all of a sudden you're looking at it kind of going, in a division right now with the Falcons up and down, 6-4. The Bucs are probably playing best of all the teams, and yet they're 4-6 because they've had two difficult games against the two teams that played in the Super Bowl, in the Chiefs and the 49ers. Are the Saints a realistic push here if they were to get on the road, or is it very much kind of we'll see the initial burst of an interim head coach, but it'll gradually come back to norm?
Yeah, I think that was a one-off. That's your classic kind of coach bump. And from what I hear, Dennis Allen was not a liked person with the Saints. A lot of players really embracing that kind of Rizzi kind of characteristic. You know, we saw him on the sideline doing, you know, little quirky things. That's the kind of stuff that endears, you know, coaches to players. A couple of years ago, we had Rich Bisaccia take over the Raiders, and that there was a bump up there too. He was well liked by the players, and you know, they almost brought him back. But you know, I think there was a lack of experience in the head coach position. But generally, when you see these things, I mean, you see a lot we saw it earlier in the season with Andy Dalton, big bump when he came in. Rizzi comes in, it's a new face, it's a new voice. Players reacted to it. But you know, I think they were lucky they ran into one of the Falcons games where they're not quite at the best. You know, Cousins has been really, really good, and he's had some real stinkers. But I mean, we'll get into the kicker in a little bit, but big bounce back for Derek Carr. I mean, the Saints have gone seven games on the trot without a win, and you know, he was going to start hearing it from the fans if he didn't get going. And he did what he had to do. He had a team that had lost 7 games on the run. he had to do something to spark the team. And that's what you want to see out of your quarterback, throwing it, just chucking it up in the air 45, 50 yards, making plays happen instead of dinking and dunking little screen passes along the way. You want to just make those power impact plays that gets the fans on their feet, gets the team energized. And, they did really good with that. They made the big plays when they needed. They kept the Falcons on the toes. Falcons secondaries had a couple of down weeks the last couple of weeks. They definitely had their feet burned this past Sunday. But I think it's more to do with a one-off kind of bounce for it's not a great team, the Saints. There's a lot going on. Derek Carr is still, his ears are still ringing from the Michael Thomas stuff. I think there was something going on with Cam Jordan as well last week. I don't think he's universally liked by the players, let alone the fans of the team. So to me, it's a one-off. The Saints are still a pretty bad team. That division, they're not going to do anything in that division. There's too many stronger teams in there. It's one of those kind of down weeks for the Falcons where they don't get much happening. Cousins was sacked 3 times, decent output, 23 of 38 for 306, but those sacks, there were some big sacks. But again, the Falcons still had the ability with the passing and the run game to keep it somewhat competitive. But when you've got a kicker missing 3 out of 4, that's you're not going to come back from that. I don't think Koo's going to come back from that either. I expect him to. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'd be surprised if he was out in the field on Sunday because you can't have a kicker doing that in this league and in a league that's so quick to get rid of kickers or even punters. So be surprised if he comes back. But as we saw, and we'll talk about the Niners in a little bit, kickers have a big impact in games. And if they're not on 100% form, then it's you're making life really difficult for everybody else. But nice comeback game from Carr. He stopped the bleeding, gave the team a little bit of respectability. Nice divisional win, little bloody nose for the Falcons. It'll feel good, but it's a temporary uptick for the Saints this year. I think it's going to be back to regularly scheduled programming for them next week.
No, Koo, as Kieran has rightly called out, misses 3 or 4, and we were watching it together on Sunday evening, and he misses it, what we would like to call a gimme. This is only 4 or 5 weeks removed from when he's hitting 60 yarders against the Bucs to put the game into overtime. And he's such I wouldn't say he's Jekyll and Hyde, but he is an up and down type of kicker. One week he looks as solid as they come, and then he's prone to these crazy games and the inconsistencies there. And despite the poor performance, shall we say, of the Falcons and the inconsistencies, yet there was still opportunities to go with this game. And again, this is another one. This was the Falcons. We all kind of felt this was a big year for him. Kirk Cousins going in there, but the inconsistency is still there. We saw it against the Seahawks a few weeks ago. They knew it was a bad divisional game. Here, having come off a big win against the Bucs the previous week, it's hard to know what's. And we just on there. They're going to win the Denver on Sunday, and right now it's hard to call who should win that game. The Broncos with Quinn Bet are 2-point favorites. It's probably about right, Brendan, with the nature of the two teams' performances over the weekend. One kicker who can't put them over the bar, and one kicker had the opportunity to win a game for the Broncos, and it gets blocked.
Yeah, look, you said it, inconsistency is the word there when it comes to the Falcons. I think, a lot of us, we look at the Falcons offense and we think how stacked it looks, but there is just something about the Falcons year in, year out, where you just feel like you can't always count on them, even if they have the talent there. Sometimes, for whatever reason, they just don't seem to click on certain weeks. And I think this is one of those weeks. Look, they should have beat the Saints. Let's call it like it is. Those kicks were pretty bad. As you said, the first thing I said when I seen him miss at the weekend was, he normally puts them in from miles out. Like, how is he missing from there? And it's just it was a strange week anyway. I think there were 10 field goals missed overall, and this week it was just one of those really, really weird weeks when it came to kicking. But look, this Saints team, I agree with Kieran. This is a nice little bump they've had with an interim head coach, but they don't have the horses there to keep that going. I think it's nice to stop the seven game loss. It's nice to beat a divisional rival. But I think generally the Falcons would win this game, and it's just one of those inconsistent weeks. I think it will be interesting against the Broncos to see how they can step it up, because they still do have talent there. They put up 181 yards on the ground. Bijan Robinson had 116 and 2 touchdowns. Like, they should have won this game, but 2 big plays to Valdes-Scantling really just undoing them. And Kieran mentioned their secondary there can have issues, and that's really what got them. But again, you wouldn't put it past this Falcons team to go out and score a lot of points in the next game, even against a tough defense like the Broncos. So it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic. But again, I think this is what you live with when you get the Falcons. You get really exciting plays, and then some weeks you just get what looks like a really tough day for Kirk Cousins, but they threw one away this weekend, I think, is it fair to say?
Yeah, big result in the NFC South. That brings us to the end of the first segment of the Irish NFL show. We're going to break for a quick minute, and then we're going to talk Giants and Panthers in Germany. Welcome back into the Irish NFL show, brought to you by our partners QuinnBet. And I'm laughing because for those who are listening on the podcast later this evening or tomorrow morning, Kieran has decided to put the grocery bag on his head. There's tears coming out, and I think can't take any more of this. Can't take any more of this pain, I imagine. We're going to kick off the second segment talking about our beloved Giants. The mask is off. Kieran, I felt like having a mask on Sunday in Germany. And look, it was a fantastic occasion yet again to have another game in the part of the international series in Munich. It was great to be back. Noel got to experience it for his first time. It's a very enjoyable event to be at, but when you're watching your team, which was a 6.5 point favorite with our partner QuinnBet going into the game, who everyone expects to win. Everyone speaks about this as an opportunity to put down a marker in terms of a comprehensive victory that Dave, the head coach, and Joe Schoen really, really needed. They found more ways to lose games. 2 turnovers in the red zone, a fumble in overtime, which I wouldn't put on the running back because he's one of the brightest spots of the season, and he had a great game and a great touchdown. And I'll hand it over because at this stage it's quite damning. And unfortunately, Joe Schoen did his press conference, his boy press conference, and people text me today saying, "Oh, he's doing a press conference. There must be some news coming." It's part of the obligation that they do a press conference during the bye week. So I'm going to stop now and hand it over to you. But Joe Schoen said a lot of stuff today, which for me was all fluff. Didn't really take it much out of us. And there's very little to take out of the season, except that the end is near for our quarterback, and maybe the end is near for our head coach and GM. But something strikes me that that's maybe not the case with them too. But certainly that quarterback. Go on, I'll give it to you now.
Oh, Jesus. Those things are hot, by the way. I don't know how fans wear those during games. Yeah, I mean, there's always, before the season starts, you're always looking through, you do the win-loss and, oh, that's a win, that's a loss. Every Giants fan in the world looked at that Panthers game, said, oh, that's a guaranteed win. And I talked about it last week. I said, if there's a way that the Giants don't get a win in this game and they embarrass themselves, which they do regularly on national television, by the way, then major decisions are going to have to be made. It looks like Jones is benched. I thought he'd be benched after that pick just before the half. I was surprised to see him come back out. I think we can all agree that that's it for Jones. The 6 years are going to come to an end. How he got 6 years, we don't know, but that's probably going to be it for him. The injury clause is going to kick in, which means that they're probably going to bench him for the rest of the year and just hope that the season hurries up to a finish and that they don't embarrass themselves any further. The Giants always find a way to embarrass themselves on national television and give fuel for every kind of writer and every kind of commentator to poke fun at a once proud franchise. Giants pride is something you'll see around the Meadowlands, and you see it around One Giants Way in East Rutherford. This is probably, and I'm sure other people that lived through the 60s and 70s before the Giants got good in the 80s will tell you that this is probably the worst it's ever been. There is no redeeming features at all to the quarterback.
Worse than Joe Judge taking nail downs on the 10.
Well, that was bad, but we were pretty sure that Judge was out the door at that stage. That was towards the end of the season, but we kind of thought Judge was going to be gone, which turned out to be the case. This is worse than the January 5th, 2003 against the 49ers when we botched anyway, I can't go into that because I'll start crying. But it's a really low moment for the Giants. I don't think, and I equate it to, I had a soccer reference earlier on with Man United. If anyone's old enough to remember Ireland playing Cyprus way back and getting beat 5-1, that was it.
I was at the game, Kieran.
Well, there you go. See, that was the end of the Staunton reign. There's games that coaches don't wash the stink off, and I think this one is going to haunt Dable for a long, long time. I don't think it's going to be enough to keep the job. I really don't. I think the fact that there's a bye now, not a bye, but the fact that we got a week now of further kind of recriminations and news coming out in the biggest media, one of the biggest media, cities in the whole world. That's going to fill that vacuum. Will Jones play? What's the next thing that's going to come out? What's the locker room going to start saying? You got players like Dexter Lawrence, who is his birthday today, and you're wasting another year of Dexter Lawrence, an absolute stud who would be an absolute, superstar in a team that was contending. So you not only are you wasting, prime years of defenses, and then you got to see Saquon running all over the place for the Eagles. So I was firmly in on Shane. I'm very, very close to being on the out with Shane right now because what kills GMs is drafts, and these last couple of drafts have not been good at all. There's been a couple of stars, yes. Tyrone Tracy is looking like a really good pickup, but I mean he was the 4th or the 5th round. You've whiffed on Evan. You've whiffed.
Can I just ask you a question? If like a counter argument to saying, look at Saquon Barkley down in Philly doing his business, the Giants have a 5th round running back who was a 10 and penny compared to what we would have to pay Saquon Barkley, and has been more effective than Saquon Barkley ever was in the last 3 years with the Giants. And he all saw him firsthand on Sunday how impressive he was. Another 100+ games. He's had numerous 100+ games. He's the lead back now. It looks like he'll be the lead back for a long time to come. Joe Shane could point to things like that. Joe Shane could point to a really strong draft this year. I agree the other two have been bad, and I'm not sold on Shane saying either. But I think I could see pros and cons to the argument. This draft class has been very effective. The other two, not so much.
Yeah, I don't buy that with the Tracy thing. Yeah, he's nice now, but he doesn't have the credit in the bank that someone like Saquon has. He hasn't produced it year after year and been consistently good. He may not be great next year. Could he be a flash in the pan? Yeah, he very well could be a flash in the pan, and he might go back to playing like a 5th rounder next year. But when you miss on players like Evan Neal, DeAndre Baker looks like an absolute bust right now. There was talk about him being benched in the second half. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't proved to be the player that we thought he'd be. He hasn't been the shutdown player we thought he'd be. And there's just problems everywhere with this team. There's not enough talent, and the drafts haven't been strong enough. Dable looks, crestfallen every single game. They're not getting any kind of consistency out of quarterback play. It's a mess from top to bottom. And like I said earlier, I don't think coaches can survive the stink of this. This is a loss that's going to follow Dable for the rest of his career wherever he goes. It's that bad. I mean, we've talked about the Bears and their problems, but this is from a team that was genuinely thought about as a contender in the East this year. And that, if we all talked about if Jones could stay healthy, they got the weapons out there. Jalen Hyatt's gone missing. He had a couple of catches on Sunday, but other than that, the rest of the season, it's just it's just everywhere you look. And Neighbors caught, and that's the thing. Neighbors caught another concussion. So is he going to be out for a period of time now? Is it worth just shutting everything down, putting in Cutlets, or even putting in Drew Lock and just going through the motions, trying to sell seats at a discount for MetLife, trying to sell some sort of excitement for the rest of the season? But if Shane and this, and again, we're going back to Mara now. Now we're going back to the guy that brought in Shermer and Joe Judge and people like that. He's looking around saying, well, I can't get rid of them after year 3, can I? But depends how the rest of the season goes. I mean, he's consistently said, at this moment, I'm not making any changes, but that can change if they go out and get blown out a couple more times. And there's, again, just like with the Jaguars, when there's empty seats, the GMs or the owners start taking notice. If there's empty seats in MetLife in December and no one's showing up, that's going to be a real telling thing. So I was very much in on Shane and Dable. The last month, 6 weeks has really shaken my faith in them too. Just a terrible loss. I'm not going to put I'm not going to put anything on Tracy. He's a rookie. He fumbled the ball. These things happen. It's not his fault. The run defense was non-existent. Banks. I was calling him Baker. DeAndre Banks looks like another bust. So it's Baker was another bust a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But it's misery all around for the Giants. There's no redeeming feature. Everyone's talking about the tank. You know my opinion on quarterbacks coming out this year. Other than Cam Ward, I'm not really sold on anybody. I don't see a savior unless they go free agent and maybe pick up Flacco again for a year and keep the seat warm for someone else. But everyone's talking about the tank. But tank for who? It's not like there's a gold star guy out there like Drake. We're tanking a year late. We should have got Drake May last year. But bad times for the Giants right now.
Now, I'll give you two questions on this because obviously you're there firsthand. So one, you're in the press conference and you saw Dave kind of like we all watch the press conferences here, but like when you're there firsthand, you can see you're going to get a sense of he looked clearly frustrated. He looked like he was for me was certainly under pressure. I thought his tone of answering, I wouldn't say he was flipping, but he's clearly frustrated with the nature of the questions coming at him. And then I'm going to flip it to the Panthers because we saw Bryce Young firsthand, and I can understand why the Panthers want to give him another opportunity and let him evaluate further. They dismissed him earlier in the season. Everyone felt that was the end of the road for him. He's come back in. They've won 2 games in a row. He had some bright spots. I think the inconsistencies were there throughout the course of the game. I don't think it was like he had a stellar game, but I saw reasons why the Panthers should have hope in him. But I'll start with the David piece first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, when we were in the press conference there, for me, the thing that stood out to me was he looked broken. He just looked a broken man. There was no fight in him. They were kind of questioning him about this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong when it happened, and there was no argument. There was just, yeah, you're right. I wish I had it back. I wish I had it back. Yeah, you're right. He just felt like as a fan, I've seen a lot similar with the Bears. You're wondering, does he have the answers? He literally doesn't look like he has any fight left in him. He doesn't seem to know what the answer is, and he's just kind of accepting of, yeah, I got it wrong, wish I had it back, and that's a tough sign. As I've seen a lot of it with the Bears over the years, and you can kind of feel when things are starting to slide into a really bad kind of situation. And look, that's what it feels like there. And obviously, when your quarterback has so many questions about him and it's not working, for an offensive coach who was calling the plays, which I think people thought, we'll maybe see a pickup here if Daboll's calling the plays, that hasn't worked. And it's just tough times now for the Giants. Obviously, you mentioned then your GM gets dragged into this, and that's the situation that they're in now. And like you can hit on all the best 5th round rookie running backs you like. If you are not hitting your top 1st and 2nd round draft picks, if they're the ones that are busting, everything underneath that then that's not what stands out to you, and that's where you kind of have the problem, and especially a quarterback. So for me, I think there's a bit of soul searching to go on now for the Giants. It'll be interesting to see where they go, what kind of answers they come up with. As Kieran says now, you're getting to a point, is it worth just shutting certain things down? Like, do you want Malik Neighbors out there getting hit and getting injured? And I'm sure they will put him out there. I don't think they will shut things down. But when your fan base starts getting to the point of those questions, there's kind of trouble. But look, again, you keep an eye on it, you see how things go. Teams can change things around, but it just feels like there's a negative kind of atmosphere at the moment. So we'll see how that kind of develops. In terms of the Panthers, Bryce Young said it on the interview or on the show we did right after the game. I have felt sorry for him at times. He had a really tough situation in Carolina last year, and there was very little that a lot of rookie quarterbacks could have done. And for him, it just went badly. He obviously gets dropped this season, then comes back in through the car crash and Andy Dalton's injury, and he comes back in. He's won 2 games. I mean, I thought he was competent at the weekend. I thought he started really well. He didn't do anything overly silly to throw the ball away or to turn it over. He just did what he needed to do. There was nothing I thought special. But then, after the tough year he's had, that's pretty much a good thing for him, just to come out, get his head right, don't do anything silly that turns the ball over, and rely on Chuba Hubbard to run for 153 yards and drag that offense on his shoulders. So look, I'm happy for him that he has another chance. I think, a young player like that, you want to see him really get a full chance before they get wrote off. He was wrote off in his 4th season, which is really tough. But again, like, I didn't see a huge amount from him. I just saw him do a competent, manage the game, let your running back carry the load. And that was it. So again, we'll see how that goes going forward. Obviously, he's back in there now as a starter. Will he be able to maybe change a few minds? And as the game goes on, and maybe he gets a bit more confidence, show what the Panthers thought they were getting last year with the number 1 pick. But again, they're not a very good team. It's not going to be easy for them. If they didn't have that running back, they'd be in big, big trouble. So again, we see how that goes. But they're two teams who are, looking at a kind of a tough situation going forward. We'll see where they develop from there.
No, I'll stick with you because last season when Jonathan Gannon got the job, there was question marks. People were sold on him. People haven't been sold on Kyler Murray. I know we spoke last week about contracts and certain stipulations of the contract, but right now they're on a 4-game winning streak. They comprehensively beat the Jets. They comprehensively beat the Bears the week before that. They had just come off 2 field goal winning games against the Chargers at home on a Monday night. Then they went into Miami. I mean, this team right now are one of the hottest in the league. And it's not even now about scraping games where they were initially. They're getting these big wins and big wins at home. I don't believe they're playing this week. They're on a bye this week, which is probably coming at a nice time for them. They can settle down and get ready for the final stretch of the season. They're a serious contender for the playoffs, but you look at the spots, and right now they're there, and they're challenging for the division. The NFC West is against the realms of possibility that they can go and win this division and shock everybody. They've got the Patriots to play. They've got the Panthers to play. They've already beaten the 49ers. Why can't they do it again? This could be the storyline of the season if the Cards team could go and make the playoffs.
Absolutely. NFC West leaders at the moment. And I never thought I'd been saying that after this number of games. But look, they're there and they deserve to be there. It's obviously been a strange division with, the way things have gone with the Rams, with the 49ers having looked like the 49ers I think most of us thought they would be. And obviously the Seahawks have turnover with head coach and all that kind of move. So, you give that regime kind of time coming in. But yeah, I mean, look, they have an offense that put up points. They have players there. Kyler Murray is obviously the key. If Kyler Murray, I think he's a really talented quarterback. I think he can play with the best of them when he's in the right frame of mind. I think the problem I've had with him over the years is that frame of mind has weighed from one way to another. Sometimes he doesn't look great when he has the talent. But I think this season he's doing what he needs to do. I mean, the last couple of games, I don't think he's been spectacular. Talking about a quarterback that was just there to kind of manage the game and not throw it away. Against the Bears, the Cardinals ran it, and they ran it all day long. And Kyler just was there to supplement that and not turn it over, and that worked perfectly. So look, this is an offense. James Conner running the ball is such a good player. Trey McBride, they have guys there that if Murray's on form, that he can really capitalize. So yeah, why can't they? The West really doesn't look like the division we thought it was going to be. On defense, I think they're playing really, really well. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of the names on defense outside Budda Baker, but whatever they're doing, these boys are making plays and they're keeping the game in it. I mean, against the Jets there, they give up 6 points. That's just that. When you have an offense that's doing what they're doing, if your defense can be holding teams like that, you're in a really, really good chance. And it's going to be interesting to watch this team as they go forward, because I really do like that offense. And it's similar kind of to the to the Falcons for me. I think they have a really good offense that on its day can really cause problems. They have a defense I kind of had question marks about, but so far this Cardinals team are answering every question.
Kieran, they played the 49ers in the last game of the season. It could be a big one. And the 49ers found their way to get over the line in Tampa. If they look towards the end, and the Bucs might pull it out of the bag. But unfortunately, they were held up in terms of, and they had to accept the field goal, which led to, I suppose, it was 57 seconds thereabouts left on the clock, and Purdy managed to get them down the field. It wasn't a great performance by the 49ers, but it's one of the games of the season where you look at it and go, right, that's probably the one now when they reflect on the season. If they make the playoffs, if they do win the division, they'll think back to those crucial wins where it looked like they were going to find their way to come out the wrong side of it. And the Bucs, like I touched on it earlier, the Bucs for me are playing probably the better of all the teams in the NFC South, and they've come up against 2 juggernauts over the course of the last 2 weeks, held their own. One goes into overtime, one it needs a last second field goal. I think there's life left in this Bucs team, but for the 49ers, I think they had to have that one this weekend, especially with McCaffrey back in the lineup.
Yeah, they definitely had to have it. And you could see that boost that McCaffrey gave them. I mean, we talked when McCaffrey was out during the season, we talked about what Jordan Mason brought. Yes, he was great on the ground, but he didn't have that dual threat that McCaffrey had. And you saw McCaffrey had 68 receiving yards on top of 39 rushing yards. So that was a huge boost to that Niners offense that's been struggling. I did fancy the Bucs to win this game, and it did look that way for quite a while. Baker played out of his mind. I really, there's a lot of players that I'm really rooting for this year. and in light of the injuries that's going on with Tampa with his wide receivers, I think Mike Evans might be back soon, but he's really keeping this team afloat despite the two close losses they've had in the last 2 weeks. But he's really keeping this team afloat with a lot of the grit and the plays that he's making. I mean, that was typified by that kind of run where he went kind of sideways, kind of laterally with Bosa wrapped all around him, and he was still able to make a first down throw. That was just emblematic of what Baker's been this season. Just back against the wall, making plays when he has to, dragging the team with him. But if ever a team needed a bye week, it's Tampa right now, because they're reeling from those two close losses. A team that's 4-6 that probably should be at least 5-5. They're definitely still in contention in the South, but those two losses might come back to hurt them. But you definitely saw that boost that the Niners got with McCaffrey out there. Just Purdy, and I've been critical of Purdy in the past, but I'll give him all his flowers because he had a great game. And again, he's been keeping the Niners afloat the last couple of weeks with kind of similar characteristics. Kind of undersized quarterback, run a lot, they get out of the pocket, they make plays with their feet. Purdy had 353 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he kept the ball moving, and he kept the offense on the field for good chunks. I don't know what Debo was doing on the sideline, but that's going to be an issue for internal situations and team meetings. But we talked about kickers earlier on in the game, and there's a lot of frustration going on with the Niners right now. And when they saw they had a chance, to kind of put the foot on the throat of the Bucs, and you got the kicker missing field goals, then that's going to get everybody kind of annoyed and riled up on the sideline. Debo, for whatever's going on with him, but you don't want to see a player going at a holder. Even it wasn't even the kicker; he started grabbing the holder. But it's a much needed win for the 49ers. Especially with the Cardinals getting that win over the Jets. The defense is starting to show up for the Niners too, but a very gritty win on the road against a Tampa team that's clawing through this division and clawing through this conference. So I'm impressed with both teams, but for me, it looks like that kind of McCaffrey boost was just enough to get 49ers over the line.
Yeah, the big game from this weekend. They have the Seahawks coming into town, a big NFC West clash. No, I'm going to turn back into the AFC. And Joe Flacco threw a bad interception last weekend on Sunday Night Football at a critical point. We saw him last year throw 2 pick sixes in the playoff game against the Texans. He has a number of interceptions on Sunday. And as good as he can be at times, there's Joe Flacco, the erratic Joe Flacco, who throws interceptions at huge times. And we were watching it on Sunday evening on the way back in from the stadium, and you kind of touched on the fact that at what stage will they maybe consider going back to Anthony Richardson if the season continues to evolve. They've got the Jets this weekend. It's hard to know who to pick come Thursday for that game. But we all felt he was given the better chance to win these games. But right now he's doing things to lose them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did the video a few weeks ago before the move was made, and we thought, both of us thought Flacco coming in would just give the Colts a better way of winning than Anthony Richardson. And then lo and behold, they go and make the move, and it's not panning out the way I don't think anybody thought. And it's a shame for the Colts because they're on a bad run now, 3 losses in a row, although 3 good teams. It's not like it was bad teams. But like this division is there. This like AFC South. The Texans aren't the team we thought they were going to be coming into the season, and the Colts should have had a chance to maybe push them. But they're having issues at quarterback, whether it's Anthony Richardson in there making some of the most unbelievable interceptions. You wonder why he's throwing. And now Flacco's come in, and you were hoping for that stability and that experience that he showed last season when he played for the Browns. And it's just not really working. It's not clicking for whatever now for the Colts at the moment. So I don't know if they go back to Richardson or not, to be honest. I don't even know if you want to put your young quarterback back into that situation again, or maybe let Flacco play it out for a while longer. But they do need to do something because, as I say, they've lost 3 games in a row to good teams, but they're still losing, and you don't want that losing mentality getting in there. So yeah, it's been a tough slog from now, and we'll see if they're able to turn that around. I think the Jets are a team now. I need to apologize to Kieran. I didn't follow along with you at the start of the season when you told us what were going to happen to them, but I'm way out on this Jets team now, and I do think that the Colts, they have enough to beat this Jets team, and Flacco I think it's a big test from this weekend to see if this continues or if he goes up against a Jets team who on paper have a good defense, but it really hasn't shown up this year. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of steps up against this team. And if he has another multi-interception game, then I don't know what the Colts do, but there's questions then start being asked about exactly what needs to happen at quarterback and if Flacco indeed does give them the best chance to win like we thought would be the case 2-3 weeks ago.
We're going to close out the show with Monday Night Football. Kieran, looking at the Dolphins schedule today, Raiders at home, then they have the Patriots, then they have Packers on Thanksgiving, which will be one of the difficult games, and then they have another game which is very winnable against the Jets. And Tyreek Hill has come out saying, don't count us out yet. This team is getting going at the right time of the season and we're going to start putting wins on the board. Now, I know it's easy to say it now, but when you look at the schedule and it's not played on paper, you can understand the nature of why he thinks that. It was a much improved performance last night. In particular, their defense stood up. Bear in mind how well the Rams have been playing offensively. Stifled the match with Stafford all night. Williams has been a serious threat for them. He couldn't really run the ball effectively. Cup was quiet. They did a good job in Puka. This is the Dolphins team which we felt that we're there for a good season. I know some people had doubts on them and whether they make the playoffs or not. And we felt that they'd start hot, and then this time of year they could have transitioned back to what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. Maybe it goes the other way this year. Maybe they get hot at the right time and go on a run to make the playoffs.
I think the Dolphins were fortunate that they were playing in a place like Los Angeles. It's kind of like they felt at home. There was palm trees and warm weather. I feel like they probably thought they were still back in Miami. But that was a nice win, a nice bounce back win for them as well. Tua performed really well. He did his thing, and again, when he's on the field, Tyreek Hill's a different player, Waddle's a different player, and the running game is much more effective. So you're getting that boost with him. He's now got a couple more games under his belt from coming back from the concussion. Bit of a blip from the Rams. I didn't expect that. I thought the Rams were going to win, and they couldn't, like you said, they couldn't get going at all on offense. Fumble from Kyren Williams, who's been great, who's been basically keeping them afloat in September and October with all the injuries they had. This might have been one of those games for the Rams where they've overachieved a little bit, having to deal with all the injuries. But the Dolphins came in at the right time and they put things together. Tua had a nice little handy game. He did get sacked three times, and he did get run around by. I tell you what, Jared Verse, the Florida State draft pick, was really good last night. I mean, just running around like his hair was on fire, making huge plays. Very, very reminiscent of what he did at Florida State that got him that high draft pick. He had a really nice game, but it's I think it's too soon to start talking about the Dolphins making a comeback. It's a nice win for them. It gets them to 3-6. It's not totally over yet, but I think that it's going to be. They're going to need a lot more of that, and they're going to need Tua not to make those. In the first half, he made that kind of head first tackle. I think it was Noteboom, Roseboom, one of those guys that was running at him after a pick, and he just lowered his head, and everybody watching TV looking away almost. They don't want to see what's going to happen. But Tua, I'll give him this. He's brave. He's putting this team on his back, and he's bringing all those skilled players back into it that have been having a really off season and not a very productive season. So you can see they're motivated with him out there. They believe in him. As Tua goes, this team goes too. But don't count out that defense. Jalen Ramsey finally showed up. I don't know where he's been for the last year and a half, but he had a decent game last night. And that Dolphins defense, Calais Campbell, defying age too. Just players put in big performances when they need them at a crucial time of the year, because if the Dolphins had lost that, it would have been shut down, and then the conversations would be with McDaniel about what are you going to do with Tua? Season's done. Are you going to rest him? What do you want to do with Tyreek? Still talk about maybe Tyreek goes back somewhere else next year if things don't change with the Dolphins. But less the Rams. I was disappointed in the Rams. 5 field goals is not going to win any games for you in the NFL. So I was a little disappointed in their offensive output, but this is more about Tua and what he did last night, and the unsung heroes being those Dolphins defense, especially the secondary. But favorable location for him, and if this was somewhere else in the Northeast this time of year, they probably wouldn't have had a good game as they did. But they were lucky. They saw the palm trees, they got inspired, and they got the win.
Well, they'll be back to their own palm trees in Florida this weekend as they welcome the Las Vegas Raiders into town, which should be a very winnable game, and maybe they'll get to 4-6. That brings us to the end of tonight's recap of Week 10. Week 11 kicks off with a huge game on Thursday. The Commanders on the road in Philadelphia. Noel will be covering that game with Kieran Donovan. That podcast will be out on Thursday morning, but we'll be back Thursday evening to preview Week 11. So look forward to that podcast for you guys.